can tell I've been here a long time, though, because I go into Meyer and they're like, oh, I seen you running down the road. I've seen you in my car. I love the town. I love the area in general, too. The Canadian side.
The Kenneth J. Scholtheis Library provides the studio support. The sun-drenched campus of Lake Superior State provides the backdrop. This is the Be Superior podcast. The expectation is never perfection, yet to be a collegiate athlete, you must be superior in so many ways in your life, academically, athletically, and socially. We are here to pull back the curtain to look under the hood so that we can peel back the onion to identify what makes the collegiate athlete superior. My name is Tory Lindley. I'm the Athletics Director at Lake Superior State University. I'm a father of 3, a partner of 36 years, a leadership junkie, a competition addict, and someone who holds a lifetime passion for college athletics. In this episode, we will find out what makes Ethan Nachazel superior. Ethan, thanks for accepting the invite. It's great to have you here, and welcome.
Yeah, awesome. It's great to be here.
How many miles did you run today, Ethan?
15.
15. Where does that kind of stand in terms of this period, this particular week? Is that a long day? Is that an average day? Or is that a short day mileage-wise?
So, yeah, right now we're at peak mileage for our training block for outdoor track. This is week 3 of our peak mileage. We do 4 weeks before we start to taper off before the conference meet. Mm-hmm. And this is a longer-ish day for me. Most days are about 12 to 13. I have other days about 15 to 18. So towards the higher end of that, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get into some of that. I'm fascinated. I'm an amateur when it comes to the running world, so I have a lot to learn, maybe some of that in today's podcast. But as we got things started, it's pretty obvious that Ethan's one of our standout distance runners. He's a senior, which means he gets to compete both in cross country and in track for Lake Superior State. So technically a 2-sport athlete. He's majoring in elementary special education. Ethan is the son of Paul and Liz. And then we have 2 Nachazels. We've got both Ethan as well as Aaron. They're twins. They are both members of our cross country and track and field team. So your paths, plural, certainly interested in how you got to Lake Superior State University. You both grew up in East Jordan. Want to hear about what took you from East Jordan to Sault Ste. Marie, and then, of course, I think there's some pretty easy embedded follow-ups in whether or not you and Aaron were always destined to find the same collegiate spot to both learn and compete, or if that was an on-again, off-again type of a situation.
Yeah, so I can answer that one of those questions right off the bat. We weren't destined to run together at the same school at all. I think originally he was the one who was interested in Lake State first. We both took a tour before my senior year up here, and at the time he was going to be an engineer, and now he's going to be a math teacher. And he really loved the college. He loved the school, loved the campus. I loved it too, but at that point I didn't want to go to the same school as my brother because, live together, school together,
right,
sports together, all of that. So I looked at a whole bunch of other D2, D3, NAIA kind of schools. And I believe Aaron committed December of our senior year. So, yeah, 2019. At that point, I was about ready to sign with another school. And I was like, I'm going to take 2 more days to think about it kind of deal. Don't know exactly what I want to do. And then the coach, the track coach at the time, reached out to me here with a scholarship offer like 2 days later. And I was like, oh, it's got to be a sign. So, committed January, about a month after my brother did, and came up July of 2020. I've been here ever since.
So we certainly don't want to toss any shade in Aaron's direction, but when you think about the time you've spent here so far, any regrets on having that initial pull kind of be toward Lake State based on the successes you've had here?
No. No, nothing I would change about like the process.
Yeah.
Really happy that I came up here, and I think it's been really good having my brother here. It's been a consistent training partner during the summer, especially when I go home. I have a couple friends that are in a different school, so we all get together and work out during the summer, but, to have someone to wake up every single day. And at the time we worked at the same place over the summer together too. So we had the same schedule, and, always having that training partner consistently throughout the year 24/7 has been really good. And I think it's been beneficial to both of us, keeping each other motivated and all.
Yeah, well, your class was fortunate in some ways, meaning you were able to find your way to your college destination prior to the COVID and pandemic shutdown. So talk a little bit, if you could, describe what that was like in that first year for you. You transitioned into college, if I'm getting the timing right. So the shutdown occurred in the spring semester of your first year, correct?
No, the shutdown would have been like the spring semester of my senior year or high school.
Oh, okay.
So we moved up kind of, peak pandemic time. At that point, we knew that cross country was going to just not happen for us in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
So that made training really weird. Inconsistent practice kind of time because we didn't really have anything to work towards. It kind of went back and forth on if we can even meet at all kind of deal. But, we got together as a group of guys.
Sure.
We kind of went based off of lower and upperclassmen just because we were told we couldn't all meet at the same time. And then indoor got canceled too, also due to COVID. So that time we trained more as, a training block, hoping the outdoor would happen. And luckily that did happen for us freshman year.
So some distinct advantages, if you can consider all the different sports that were impacted by the pandemic. Advantage to you, the runners, one, get to be outside or train outside. Number two, that allows for, some of the your version of practice, the training to occur regardless of, what restrictions there might be in some ways around the pandemic. So did you feel prepared, normal preparation for the most part when it came time to become a first-year college athlete? How big was that transition? Do you think the pandemic had anything to do with that?
I think it depended on the person, but for me it was beneficial because we knew that that high school track season was canceled. So I immediately just jumped my mileage to what I thought would be an appropriate amount for a college freshman, and kept on that all summer. And looking back in hindsight, I probably overworked myself a little bit, not knowing exactly, what I was doing and first time at high mileage kind of deal. But fall was great, winter was great training-wise. But I felt like by the time spring came around and we actually were able to compete, it'd been, 14, 15 months since my last real race. So in that aspect, I felt very unprepared because, cross-country and track athletes basically race year-round. So for us, consistency is always there. When I know basketball and all the other sports, they're in, 4-month period or so. So for me, I felt unprepared going into my first race, not physically, but more of a mental, I haven't raced in a year kind of thing.
Yeah, I could definitely sense how the anxiety might be there, when you haven't done something in that long a period of time, as well as not really understanding what the competition would be like and, how others at the collegiate level might approach those races. So could you describe a little bit about the differences in training regimen for you or for other distance runners, when you're in cross-country season versus track season, and is there one that you prefer over the other?
So definitely I'm a cross-country guy. I like being on the grass. So for sure, cross-country over track for me. The main difference in the training is we run a little bit more mileage in the fall than we do during indoor and outdoor. And fall, you're running more tempo, slower. They're fast workouts, but they're slower in pace compared to the spring and the winter, but they're more volume. So, for example, one of the bigger workouts we did during cross country this year was 5x2 mile at tempo pace, so 5:15, 5:20 pace, with about 2 minutes rest in between each 2 mile. And in outdoor, that looks to be about 3 or so of those reps instead of 5. A little bit faster, and then at the end you do a little bit more sprinting just because the pace in track is a little bit quicker than that of cross country.
Yeah, I want to pause and I want to bring that back a little bit for the listener because you skipped over it in the language of the runner. So to translate, that is a 5-minute, 15-second mile pace, correct?
Yeah, sorry.
Right. Well, okay. Again, that's still astounding to consider that would be a training pace. Wow. Really, really, really high end. Good work on that. So in track season, what are your events?
I primarily in indoor I run the 5K and a little bit of the 3K, and then outdoor I run 10K and a little bit of the 5K too.
And how many laps? Translate that for the listener.
So the 10K on the track is 25 laps, and when you run it, and the first time I ran it, I remember going around the first lap and seeing 24 on the lap counter, and it's just like, oh no, I gotta do this 24 more times, and you learn. I've done 3 of them now, and each of them you just learn a little bit more of, how to pace and not to get out too fast or too slow, and who to go with and things like that.
How does music affect your training? Do you use it daily in your practice training, knowing you really can't have your buds in during the races? How do you use music to motivate you, and how does that difference between a training day and a race day?
Yeah, so training day, I hardly ever listen to music.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, we talk with the guys a lot.
Sure.
Just because we're out there, an hour and a half at a time, and we don't want to sit there with our earbuds in. So we talk basically about everything you can ever imagine at this point. And if I'm running by myself and I'm only running a few miles, then I'll occasionally listen to music. But I prefer the headphones over the earbuds. I don't like earbuds in my ears. But race day, I get pumped up before the race. I have my set playlist, and so really it doesn't impact me a whole lot race day to practice, typically, from what I'm listening to.
I'm pitching that group. You're out on an hour and a half, sometimes 2-hour training day. How many major problems have you all solved?
World problems?
Campus problems, world problems, any type of.
I would say a lot. I would say some of the problems and how we solve them would be controversial, but that's part of the fun. We don't try and get too serious when we're out there for 2 hours because I don't know. I don't like being serious for 2 hours at a time. So Jokes are made. We solve some of the issues that we can come up with, fake scenarios, things like that.
Which teammate entertains you the most? Typically the most on these runs.
Skylar Williams is very entertaining to run with. You never know what's gonna come out of his mouth. Him and Gary Haight, he's a freshman too. Those two together, they're just an interesting combo.
So you've got teammates on the cross country roster. That's the distance. That's your core group. You've got that group that is more of a track athlete. So you've got the sprinters, the field events, the throwers, etc. We'll get to your dad who threw javelin. I can't wait to hear how many stories he probably has told at the dinner table, and likely embellished, or perhaps embellished. We'll find out in a second. But when that group gets added, those teammates on the track side of things, how does the dynamic change when you consider, track and cross country as team sports?
I think one thing that we do very well on our team is all the event groups get together very well. We go to other schools and bigger schools generally, and their event groups kind of stick to themselves, which is fine. But I think because our team doesn't have 100 people on it, everyone has to be friends to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it fun because, I love the distance guys, but it's nice to talk to a thrower, or a sprinter, or a jumper once in a while too.
Yeah, who do you admire most when you look at the entire track roster?
Look at the entire track roster. I mean, probably Jenna Fleming. She's amazing. Three-time national qualifier, school records. Great teammate, nice person too. So she's definitely someone that is fun to talk to and is a great teammate.
Yeah, shout out Jenna. She's someone who a lot of people in our department admire, and a lot of other student athletes. That's great. All right, so let's get to your dad. So tell me some of the things that you think Paul is spot on with his javelin prowess at the University of Michigan, and sometimes maybe when he may have stretched the truth.
He's been completely honest about me to me about the whole situation. So he was a swimmer, football player, track runner in high school, but Michigan doesn't do jav for high school. So that's not an event here. So when you go to college, you kind of just take someone who you think could be good at jav and you train for it. And he just went to one of the open tryouts and made the team. and he didn't make it after a year. He got redshirted, and then he's like me, very stubborn, and he got redshirted and didn't like that, and he was done. He quit, but he said looking back, it was one of the things he regretted most about college, for sure. But, definitely a cool experience for him being on the team for a year.
Yeah, how about the influence that your mom and dad had on you and continue to have on you, but, as you were, I guess, developed in those high school years as a student athlete, a high school student athlete, and forming you toward the decision to be a college athlete? What type of influence did they have?
Oh, they had a lot. I remember they signed me up for my first 2-mile race, Boyne City, 2-mile 4th of July run when I was 7, and they've took me to all the meets. They bought all my shoes in high school. Once in a while, they still buy me a pair when I'm running low on money. But they're great. They show up to every meet that they can. They went to Evansville this year, which was a 12-hour drive.
Wow.
They do everything. They cook for the team. They go to every event you can imagine. They've, donated things to the team, too, that we need. They're great. In high school and college, they've got my back all the time, and it's great.
Yeah, that's special. Talk about the Sioux. How have you enjoyed living in Sault Ste. Marie? You probably get back to East Jordan in the summer, and you can go back and forth fairly easily. How long is that drive?
It's a little under 2 hours. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Sault Ste. Marie.
I love it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of back home, except it's bigger here, obviously. But the kind of people that are here remind me of the kinds of people that are back home. Very nice, very friendly. I can tell I've been here a long time, though, because I go into Meyer and they're like, "Oh, I seen you running down the road. I've seen you in my car." I love the town. I love the area in general, too. The Canadian side's fun to go to as well. The Bay Mills area, that we go out there and run quite a bit. And, the community's great. A whole bunch of nice people up here for sure. And even in the SAC, or the Student Activity Center, we have people that come up and talk to us now, too, which is great because I think we all want to form a positive relationship with our community members.
Have you had a pasty?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I had to start with that because I had to make sure. All right, so where do we find the best pasty in the Sioux?
In the Sioux? Okay. I don't know if I've had one from here in a really long time. I know I've had one at Antlers before, and that was pretty good. But this is a hot take. My favorite pasty I've ever had is from Royal Farms. That's down Charlevoix area.
Okay.
That's far and large my favorite pasty around. But I've had a good one at Antlers, a couple out western UP area. But for the most part, I haven't had a whole lot of pasties actually in the Sioux.
So a couple opportunities there for NIL. You give a couple of nice plugs for Antlers as well as the place in Charlevoix. What do you think it would have been like, if different at all, if you had been an identical twin?
I think people would mix Aaron and I's names up even more, which, believe it or not, people do, even though he has brown hair, brown eyes. I've blonde hair, blue eyes. That would probably happen. He would probably come into my math classes and help me out a little bit more. We'd swap spots there.
There you go.
He's really smart, so I couldn't go into any of his classes. He's a really smart guy, but a lot of more mess ups in the names. Maybe we'll switch into each other's events once in a while for a little bit of fun.
There you go.
But other than that, nothing too radical.
I'm interested in this prioritization that the college athlete has to do. There's practice, there's academics, there's the social piece, all the things that I highlighted in the very beginning of the podcast, as well as other things like, hobbies. So typically our decisions are guided by our priorities. What are your priorities, and how do those priorities change in the different seasons of the year for you? Fall, cross country, winter and spring, indoor and outdoor track.
So for me, I'm always a student first. I know that at this point in my life, I'm not going to be a pro runner, so I need to think more about my future as a teacher than anything else. So that means moving around runs so I can go in and teach once in a while, things like that. But differences between the fall and the spring. In the fall, I prioritize eating more. That's something that I prioritize more, just because we're running a lot more in the fall than we do in the spring sometimes. In the winter, I'd probably prioritize safety over anything else. We know that it gets pretty fun up here in the winter in the UP.
Yeah.
But that means more running inside, more wearing reflective clothing outside when it's snowing real good. And in the spring, that's probably when I prioritize being a student most, because final exams are coming up and things of that sort.
Looking ahead to student teaching, which you're, again, elementary education, special education, are there things that you're really excited about and things that you're fairly to highly anxious about?
I'm really excited for the teaching part. I'm super excited to be a full-time teacher, but that's also what I'm scared of too.
Yeah.
I know when this semester's done, the next time classes will be starting up, I'll be teaching full-time, which is kind of a scary thought for me, but I'm really looking forward to it. My dad's a teacher, so one thing I'm not looking forward to are all the staff meetings and things like that. And I'm probably also anxious for my first, they acclimate you in. You're only in there for a few hours a day at first, and then you're teaching for about 10 weeks, and then they kind of taper you out. And I'm nervous for that first full day of teaching. But I know once I'm there and I'm doing it, I'm going to be really excited.
Yeah, if that's the one day that you'll get through that one day and then you'll be off and running. That'll be great. Runners have to be prepared for a lot of things at most times of the day. You probably carry a decent amount of things around in your backpack so that you're always prepared from a snack standpoint or whatever it might be, supplement. So what might be the most surprising thing we would find in your backpack?
Most surprising thing that you could find in my backpack? There's probably some random piece of clothing at the bottom, like one glove. Probably some fruit snack wrappers too. Maybe a piece of art that a kid drew for me, and nice. I forgot to take it out of my bag.
Okay.
But I went through it today and cleaned it out, and I found all those things: hats, gloves, spikes that you put in the shoes for running. Mm-hmm. Just about anything you can imagine has been in there at one point.
How has your addiction to caffeine changed over the years?
Before I came to college, I never had a cup of coffee. And now I drink coffee fairly consistently. I'm a big V8 energy guy.
Okay.
If I could get an NIL deal with them, I'd be the happiest man ever. I drink about one of those a day, and then normally I'll have to have a cup of coffee or something similar along those lines for that.
Back to the academic piece, there are a number of fantastic professors here at Lake Superior State. Many of them, go out of their way to really develop relationships with students that I think are probably, different and superior to many other professor and student relationships. Do you have a couple of those that you'd like to describe, and how big of an influence has that had on you working your way through these academic challenges of college?
I'm allowed to use names, right?
Professors?
Sure. Okay. Dr. Cannon, that's the class I have at 6 today. Phenomenal. She has done a great job. Great at teaching. She has really taught me more in the past. She's new here, in the past couple of semesters than I could even imagine. Done a great job preparing me for next year and what student teaching is going to look like. We had another professor before her who left. She's now in South Korea, making special ed laws and teaching over there. And she was really good too. Both of those professors really got me excited about teaching and, got me excited for the career and impacting kids' lives.
That's great. What types of things do you do that you would consider hobbies? And maybe if you get a chance to watch a television show here and there, what's the last show you binge watched?
Okay. Hobbies. I love going on hikes, getting outside. I like playing pickup basketball once in a while. I wouldn't say I am LeBron James at any means, but I like playing with the guys. We always play when the season's done. just in case one of us rolls an ankle,
Sure.
that we're not jeopardizing our season over one game. But I like to cook too, occasionally when I have time. That's another hobby of mine. The last show I binge watched was Barry. It's on HBO Max.
Yes.
It's got, I think it's Bill Hader in it.
It is.
And he does a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting. It's weird to see him in a more serious role than funny, though.
So I've started, I'm probably 3 or 4 into it, lost track, but your recommendation will get me back on that train. When you hike, how much do you consider the training, load for that day or that week? Or is this hiking that you try to do more in a time when you're just trying to keep your mileage up?
Oh, this is just, hiking's a casual thing for me. It's not really part of my training regimen. Because typically we do our training regimen in about 6 days or so.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be something I do on Sundays just to go out and stretch. And when we're at peak mileage, I don't do it as much just because I don't want to put additional wear and tear in my body. But overall, it's not something I really consider part of my training, more as a fun for me activity.
We'll let the listener judge, but what do you think is more interesting? The first thing you do in the morning when you get out of bed, or the last thing that you do before going to bed?
First thing I do in the morning when I get out of bed.
Which is?
Go to practice.
Come on, we need to describe that a little more than
All right.
Just going to practice.
I get up, I get my practice attire on, I go downstairs, get a few drinks of water, maybe a little snacks and peanut butter or fruit snacks, pop in my headphones, walk. I live in the townhouses, so I walk from the townhouses up to the SAC, and I listen to the same about 2-3 songs every day, rotating once in a while, and then go in, get the agenda for the day, and get her started.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I think waking up and getting right to your workout, right to, that practice session is fairly unique, which I'm sure gives you a pretty big sense of satisfaction knowing that prior to 7 a.m. you may accomplish more than most will the entire day.
Yeah, I like getting up and getting my practices not over with, but
sure.
I like being able to, having the rest of the day to do homework or go work or things like that.
Best outdoor track that you've competed on?
Best outdoor track that I competed on? Grand Valleys is very nice. We went to, it wasn't great weather, but we went to St. Norbert last weekend, and their track was also really nice and a cool spot too, for sure.
So it's in Green Bay, and I've been to their campus, but where have they positioned their outdoor track? It's
actually a mile about south of their campus.
Oh, okay.
They have a whole bunch of, it's with their football field as well.
Okay.
So for a D3 school, they have really nice facilities, and they let us use their locker rooms there too,
mm-hmm.
which was another added bonus. But they got softball and they got their track all in that area.
The pressure when it comes to race day, whether it's cross country or competing in indoor or outdoor, how do you manage the pressure? What types of things create that pressure for you? And have you gotten better at it over the years?
Yeah, I've definitely improved over the years. I remember being in middle and high school, and just like every meet, I'd want to throw up before I would race. And one thing I've done this year that's a little bit different is I will occasionally do a little bit of yoga when I get there, just try and calm myself down. Obviously, if you do it for long enough, the stress eventually comes down. Especially to the meets that I wouldn't say they don't matter as much, but non-conference meets, the first meets of the year.
Sure.
Those don't have as big of an impact on your season as the big meets do. But, being at the conference championships, everyone's going to be fast. And that still gets me pretty anxious. But listening to music helps me. Doing a little bit of yoga helps me. And talking to my teammates, too. I don't want to go sit in silence in the corner. Because the more you think about it, the more you're going to get yourself worked up. And running's just as much of a mental game as it is a physical.
No doubt. For you, like swimmers is another example. Really, the opponent is the clock. But how much do you enjoy having an actual opponent who you're standing next to at that start line, or an actual opponent, as you're in the middle of a run, understanding, to push yourself for whatever reasons, the name on their jersey or just the stupid look on their face versus the clock? How do you work that out?
The clock, it'll only get you so far. And it really helps having, opponents to run against because it gives you people to go and compete against. For me, there's a couple of schools that I like racing against a little bit more because it's more fun when you beat their runners. Mostly schools in our conference for sure.
Sure.
And other schools that I took tours at too, because now I get the satisfaction of knowing that I could beat most of their runners.
Right.
But yeah, all those things just, fuel the runner. And I love the competition. It's the best part of it.
So if you could be, as a senior, you've been around long enough, so you've seen an athletic department in full swing. If you could be athletic director for a day, what would you do?
Okay. I told you before this is the question I wanted to answer. So we travel a lot for our cross-country meets, track as well. And I think we've always wanted to do something at home. And I think a cross-country meet during Laker Week when we have the home basketball and volleyball and hockey would be phenomenal because not only would we cut down on expenses by not having to travel and we'd have another accountable meet for us, but we could turn it into a fundraising event if we had a high school meet as well as a college meet. And I know my parents would love to come up and watch, a home Lake State cross-country meet in the Sioux. Would be really exciting.
Yeah, Ethan, it's a fantastic thought, idea, concept, one that we are working really hard to establish a home course. The exciting part is the landscape around the Sioux provides a number of different opportunities that Tony and I and others are looking forward to developing because we have that section or that space out by Meyer. The wooded area there. There's opportunities to perhaps even incorporate the I-500 space, given how much the community is invested in that as what could be a part of a really special collegiate course. So your mindset is right along with ours. There's absolutely an opportunity in the future to develop that, and when we do, we'll absolutely bring you back.
Oh yeah, I'd love to sit in the chute and direct people.
So with that in mind, looking at the future, you're going to become a really successful teacher. You're going to give back at a really high level and have a tremendous impact on a number of young lives. How do you see your running continuing, and what types of goals might you have down the road that your running shoes might be able to take you toward?
Yeah, so I think I have a couple things that I want to accomplish after I'm done here. I want to run at Boston, the marathon there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd have to qualify for that, but I'm fairly confident.
I'm pretty confident you can
I've seen the times.
I
could qualify for it. I want to run Boston. After that, I'd probably be fine with a couple more marathons. There's a cool one up in Minnesota called Grandma's Marathon. That's a fun one too.
Yes.
And then after that, I really want to hit the ultras, run a couple hundreds, 50s, just, something different where I'm not running as fast. But from what I've heard, the ultra community is really fun, fun group of people. And I also want to coach too, middle school, high school, really just about anything because I had really good high school coaches and they definitely had an impact where I am today.
And I'll translate one more time for those. When he said ultra and he said 150, he meant 100-mile races and 50-mile races. Yeah, that's a tremendous amount of time. So hopefully your day-to-day schedule allows you to do that long run in the morning and then that ridiculously long run in the evening to become a part of that community. But yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about the ultra community. That's fantastic. All right, we definitely want to get to your Superior Six list. On this podcast, 5 is not enough because we refuse to have ties. So want to know first what the category is and then what is your Superior Six list?
Okay, so my category is team long run locations. So areas for the past 4 years where we have gone to for long runs.
This is great because I'm going to take some notes, get my mileage back up, and I'm going to need some better views to work my way around the Sioux. Long runs. Here we go.
We're starting at 6. So number 6, we call it Fish Road. It's out by Pickford, and it's just this dirt road called Fish Road. It goes on just about forever. Some hills, 2-track dirt. That's the kind of stuff we like to run on. The Sioux, Canada, we went over there this fall, and they have a 17-mile bike path that I ran. And it's probably higher up in terms of places I enjoy running, but it's lower because it's hard to get to. Just because I don't like dealing with the border security all the time.
And that's number 5. Tell me about how hilly that is. Is that because it's a bike path? Is it hillier than most places you'd choose to run?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty hilly. In the 17 miles or so, you probably gain about 1,000 feet of elevation, where the other areas we go to are probably about 400 or 500. So I enjoy it though. It's a lot of fun.
Good. Number 4.
Number 4 is Pine Bowl. That's out by Kinross. It's a trail system that is primarily used in the winter for cross-country skiing. But I think you can also take horses on it and stuff during the summer. But it's about 8 miles of trails or so. And then there's a nice dirt road that when you need to run more than that, you can just go out and back on that. And it's dirt. You never see a car either, which is nice.
When you need to run more. Got it.
Yeah.
Number 3.
Number 3 is Dunbar Park. That's where we went last weekend. That's about 20 minutes out of town, down the St. Mary's River. You get to run along the St. Mary's for as long as you want, which is nice. And again, there's no cars. We love to go to spots where you don't see any cars.
Very helpful.
Yeah, very, very helpful. I'll just jump into number 2. That's Sullivan's Creek. It's a fish hatchery out near Rayco. We have a 11-mile loop, 14, 15-mile loop out there too. But you can do an out and back. That's about as far as you can ever want it to be. Don't see any cars. It's super pretty during the fall time because you're out where nobody lives and you got a whole bunch of trees that are changing color.
Sounds amazing.
And number
Takes
1
us to number 1.
Number 1, Mission Hill out in Bay Mills.
All right.
Especially during the fall because you get to, we park on top of that hill and you get to look down at Monaco and Spectacle Lake. And then you can go as far out on that dirt road as you want. You'll never see any cars. And then we always go to Dancing Crane, which is out there too. That's a nice coffee spot post run.
Well, I think you have a future, at least with the Chamber of Commerce, to be able to help dictate what the best places are to go, even if you aren't a runner. So that's a really good list. We appreciate you sharing. The last thing I want to ask you before we get you to your class is this piece of advice that you might consider for a high school athlete who aspires to be a college athlete. What types of things have you experienced that you would recommend highly that they consider, and really what maybe 2 things, the second being what's the best advice you received as a high school athlete?
So some things I would give for high school athletes wanting to compete in college is the first thing is reach out. I got tons of letters from different schools at different levels, but I never got one from Lake State. And I had to reach out here to, get a spot on the team. So don't be afraid to reach out. No matter your ability level, there's always somewhere for you to compete. It might be community college, might be a smaller NAIA school, but there's always going to be somewhere for you to compete. The best advice I got from my high school coach about, preparing yourself for trying to be a college athlete is doing the small things. That's eating, that's sleeping, taking care of yourself, keeping your grades up especially. A lot of coaches look for, they want students who are smart on their team. And that they know are going to be able to hang around for 4 years. And then one more piece of advice from me is to still go out and have fun. Life isn't all about sports. I think the stat is that 98% of college athletes are not going to go pro. Mm-hmm. So have hobbies, have friends. You can still have life outside of sports and be a good athlete.
Ethan, that's great advice. Really enjoyed the time today. That's really, I think, encompassing a lot of what you've represented here at Lake Superior State during your time. It's been great to get to know you in the short time that I've been here, and really looking forward to seeing how the rest of the track season plays out. You're an inspiration when I consider that really important mix of your academic achievement with what you've been able to accomplish as a cross-country and track athlete, which, every athlete puts in a lot of time. The runners put in a lot of time and then some. So again, thank you. Your time is valuable. We'll get you out of here, but what we want to be able to do is encourage everybody to to connect with our student athletes. They're really proud members of this community, and please take the time when you see them to get to know them. This is a great chance for us to shine a light on what they've accomplished and everything that they do to be superior. So we appreciate your listenership. As always, download, subscribe, share, and share again. Thank you for listening to today's episode, and as always, be superior.